The gravel crunched beneath my tires as I pulled into the drive. The porch looked the same, dusty, from wind pine needles gathered at the corners. The house stood quiet in the falling light, just as I remembered. I hadn't told anyone I was coming. I didn't think I needed to. I grabbed my small duffel and climbed the steps already, picturing the kettle on the stove. The sound of silence, the way the mountain air settled deeper at dusk. I reached for the doorknob, but music leaked through the seams, something upbeat, synthetic. A woman's laugh rang out. Glasses clinked. I froze. This wasn't noise the house knew. I knocked once sharp. The door opened almost immediately. Camille stood there in leggings and bare feet, holding a half-full glass of wine. Her lipstick was too red for this place. Her smile faltered the moment she saw me. "You're trespassing," she blurted, then blinked as if correcting herself. "Oh, Maris. You didn't say you were coming." I looked past her. There were shoes scattered on the entry rug heels, sneakers, boots I didn't recognize. A man with a beard leaned over the back of my couch, laughing at something on a phone screen. Someone else carried a tray of drinks toward the kitchen. "Is Robert here?" I asked. She shook her head too quickly. "Work trip. He's back Monday." A voice called out from the living room, cheerful and loud. "Did the Airbnb lady forget something?" Camille didn't answer. Her smile returned thinner. "We've just got some family staying for the weekend. My cousin needed a break, and well, we thought you were still in the city." I stepped forward. She hesitated, but didn't stop me. The scent of cheap candles hit me first. Then the soft thud of bass vibrating through the walls. This wasn't a visit. This was an occupation. I set my bag down by the bench, my hand resting on the carved armrest my husband made years ago. Camille was still standing behind me, waiting for something. Camille lingered near the door like a host trying to soften bad news. "We weren't expecting you," she said again, tucking a piece of hair behind her ear. "Robert's not here. I didn't know you'd be coming." She pointed down the hallway. "You're welcome to stay in the downstairs guest room, the one near the laundry. It's quieter there anyway." I didn't respond. I stepped past her. The living room had changed. My quilt, the one I made before Robert was born, was nowhere in sight. The old coffee table had been painted over in pale gray with fake flowers in a glossy ceramic vase. The armchair where my husband used to read had been moved to the corner and covered with a throw blanket in pastel stripes. I walked through, slowly letting my eyes adjust to a home that no longer knew my touch. The framed photo of the lake, the one we'd taken that winter when the snow came early, was gone. In its place above the fireplace hung a canvas print in blocky font. "Every ending is a new beginning." The hallway smelled like lavender spray, too sweet and too forced. I paused outside the master bedroom. The door was open. Inside, 2 large suitcases rested against the dresser. A makeup bag lay unzipped on the vanity, a curling iron still plugged in. On the windowsill, a half-empty wine glass shimmered in the afternoon light. The bed was dressed in smooth linen sheets I didn't recognize. My nightstand had been cleared. No books, no lamp, no framed photo of us at the ridge. Camille hovered behind me, her voice light. "It's just temporary. We've had people coming in and out. You know how it is." I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I wanted her to stop talking. I stepped into the room. She didn't follow. The chair by the window, my husband's chair, was still there. That much they hadn't touched. I sat down and folded my hands in my lap. Behind me, Camille's footsteps faded down the hall. The house didn't say anything. It hadn't said anything in a long time. I moved quietly through the house, careful not to touch too much. The air smelled faintly of perfume and cleaning spray, sharp and artificial. It didn't smell like wood smoke anymore. In the kitchen, my copper kettle was gone. The one Robert bought for me years ago, when I said I missed the sound of water boiling on a stove instead of in a machine. In its place sat a sleek electric model, humming faintly on the counter. My handmade mugs, each one chipped in a way that made it mine, had been replaced with glossy white cups stacked in perfect rows. I opened the drawers. At the back of one, wedged behind loose receipts and a packet of tea, I found a photo of me and my husband on the deck. It was bent at the corner, as if it had fallen and been shoved back without care. I slipped it into my pocket. The living room had been rearranged. The bookshelf was empty, except for scented candles and faux plants. The fireplace mantel, once lined with stones we collected from our hikes, now held small souvenirs, tiny mountain figurines, and a gold-framed quote about family. None of it was real. In the hallway, I heard laughter. Someone said they'd order pizza for dinner. I didn't recognize the voices. I went into the bedroom again. The bedding was new, pale, hotel, perfect, smelling of detergent. My husband's chair was still there, though draped in a throw blanket that didn't belong. Someone had used it as a backdrop for photos. The fabric still held the faint outline of a camera tripod's shadow. I sat down and rested my hands on the armrests he had sanded smooth decades ago. The grain felt the same under my fingers. Outside, the light stretched across the floor, long and soft. No one came to check on me. No one invited me to dinner. I could hear the clatter of dishes, Camille's laughter, the sound of plates being set for others. I stayed where I was and waited for the house to remember whose it was. Robert arrived after dark. I heard the car pull in and the sound of the door closing harder than it needed to. He didn't come inside right away. I stayed in the living room, seated where I could see the front door. The lights from the porch spilled through the window, catching the edge of the new mirror Camille had hung where the old coat rack used to be. When he finally stepped in, he didn't look at me right away. "I thought you were in town," he said, his voice low and strained. "Camille said it would be okay for her family to use the place a while, since it's been empty." I didn't speak. I wanted to give him room to dig the hole or climb out. He rubbed the back of his neck. "You haven't really used the house in months. It made sense to let family enjoy it. Keep it from sitting cold, you know." I nodded once, slowly, not in agreement, but to acknowledge the words. Like wind through a screen door, it passed, but didn't touch me. Camille appeared a moment later, holding her wine glass again, her smile too tight to last. "You've been so generous," she said, stepping close to Robert. "We figured it was time to really live in it, make it feel like home again." She said it like a compliment, like I should feel proud. I looked at Robert. "Did you tell them you own it?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. "Not exactly," he muttered. My fingers were folded in my lap. Still, I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I wasn't angry in that moment. I was listening for the silence between their sentences. Camille took a step back. Robert shifted his weight, like the floorboards were uneven beneath him. Neither of them apologized. They didn't ask if I was okay. They didn't ask if I wanted anything back. I stood up and walked toward the hallway. The lights were dim there, but I didn't need them to find what came next. By morning, the house smelled like coffee and perfume. I heard Camille before I saw her. Her voice carried from the living room light, and confident, the kind she used when she wanted to sound important. "Yes, this is the main sitting area," she said. "It gets great light in the mornings. We're planning to repaint soon, maybe lighter tones." She basically gave it to us, it's just not in our name yet. Her laughter followed, bright and rehearsed. I stayed in the hallway, out of view. The sound of her phone camera turning from room to room made my stomach tighten. I caught pieces of her sentences as she moved. "Oh, that's the guest room. Yes, my mother's staying there next month." I waited until the front door closed behind her voice and the quiet returned. Then I walked into the room. Her phone sat on the coffee table, still recording. I pressed stop and set it down. On the desk beside the couch was a neat folder labeled Cabin Transition Notes. I opened it. Inside, she had made lists in tidy columns: repaint kitchen change, mailbox, name transfer utilities, draft ownership letter. Each line was numbered, checked off, like a project already underway. No signatures, no legal marks, just her handwriting full of confidence. At the bottom, a note in smaller print: Robert said she won't care. She never comes up here anyway. I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't speak. I picked up the folder and carried it to the bedroom. From the nightstand drawer, I took out my leather notebook and opened it to the page where I kept the deed. I slid Camille's list inside, next to the official document, black ink, notarized seal. My name pressed into paper that couldn't be erased. The house was quiet again. Outside, a bird struck the window and flew off, startled by its own reflection. I closed the notebook and placed it back in the drawer. It was time to make a list of my own. By Wednesday, the gravel driveway filled with more cars. I watched from the front porch as Camille's parents arrived, her mother with a wide sun hat, her father carrying a cooler, like he owned the place. They hugged Camille like it was a reunion on property they'd long called their own. Within hours, more cousins filtered in. Suitcases rolled across my floors. Wet towels draped over stair railings. Camille's voice rose with each introduction, each plan. Someone asked where I was staying. Camille waved it off. We've set her up downstairs. The basement's quiet. It'll be cozy for her. Robert pulled me aside later, looking tired. Mom, maybe a hotel's better just while they're here. It's getting crowded, and you probably want real rest. I looked at him without blinking. I'm fine where I am. That night, they set the long table with mismatched plates. Laughter floated easily across the room. I took the last seat at the far end. No one saved me a spot. No one seemed to notice. Camille stood to introduce everyone, beaming. "This is Robert's mom," she said, with a hand gesture so casual it could have been a shrug. "She used to spend summers here before we took over." I reached for the pitcher, poured my own water, and spoke clearly. "I'll be staying," I said. "This house is mine." The fork in Camille's hand paused midair. Someone coughed. Robert didn't look up. No one replied. They moved on, talked about the lake, the hiking trail they planned to visit tomorrow. Camille's mother complimented the curtains I hadn't chosen. I finished my meal in silence. Every scrape of my fork sounded louder than it should have. When dinner ended, Camille brought out dessert. She offered everyone a slice, skipping me without comment. I stood, walked my plate to the sink, and washed it myself. Upstairs, I closed the door to the master bedroom and sat in my husband's chair. The sound of voices downstairs faded into nothing. I opened my notebook and added a new line to the list. The next morning, I slipped out before the others were awake. The house creaked like it remembered me. I went to the old office, our office, where we used to keep the serious things. The desk was still there, though someone had thrown a decorative runner over it. Underneath, I found the document box. Inside, the deed, notarized and folded with care. Tax assessments, utility bills, insurance. Everything in my name. Everything untouched. I carried it all to the master bedroom and spread it across the bed, then began scanning page by page. When the last document was saved, I sent them all to my lawyer with a simple message. Please confirm receipt and prepare for next steps. Then I sat down in my husband's chair and opened my notebook again. I turned to a fresh page. I didn't title it. Just began, Document Misuse Record. Who is currently staying in the house, photograph all damage, log unauthorized occupancy. I didn't argue. I recorded. That's what mattered now. What could be proven, not explained. Later that morning, while Camille's family was out walking the trail behind the ridge, I made a call to the county recorder's office. Just confirming, I said evenly, that the property title for 721 Tall Hollow Road has not changed. The clerk was polite, efficient. It remains under Maurice Gallant. Last recorded transfer was in 1992. I thanked her and hung up. Downstairs, I heard the door open. Voices filtered in, someone laughing about the hike, someone else asking where to plug in their charger. I tucked the folder back into the drawer and locked it. That evening, I sat by the window and made tea on the portable kettle I'd brought up years ago, the one they hadn't bothered to move or toss out. Camille passed me in the hallway without a word. I didn't speak either. We didn't need to. I had already begun to set things in motion. Friday morning came with the sound of car doors slamming and laughter drifting up the drive. The guests were leaving for a winery tour Camille had planned days ago. They piled into 2 cars arguing cheerfully about directions, who would drive, who would drink. No one asked if I wanted to join. When the last engine faded down the hill, the quiet fell sharp and clear. I stood in the doorway for a long time, listening to it. Then I began. I started with the porch. Folded towels, coolers, sandals, a stack of board games. Everything that didn't belong to me went into labeled boxes. Each one placed neatly along the rail, grouped by owner. I carried out the plastic bins they'd used to store their snacks and drinks. Then I vacuumed the floors, wiped the counters, and dusted the picture frames they'd left smudged. Before noon, I printed the notice. The words fit perfectly across the page plain, and direct, unauthorized guests must vacate immediately. Legal action pending. I taped it to the porch railing with 2 strips of clear tape, the kind that wouldn't peel the paint. By the time they returned, the sun was low. I was folding a blanket in the living room when the first door swung open. Camille's voice hit before I saw her. "What is this?" she shouted. "You can't just throw people out." I kept my hands steady, smoothing the blanket. "I never invited them," I said. Robert appeared behind her, his expression tight. "Mom? Come on. This is going too far." I looked at him but didn't answer. Camille stepped closer. Her face flushed. "You think you can just decide that I turned my back?" before she finished. Outside, the sound of boxes being moved filled the silence between us. Someone was reading the notice aloud. Another person cursed quietly. I placed the folded blanket on the couch and walked to the window. The porch light flickered, once catching the reflection of my handwriting on the paper taped outside. I didn't move it. I let the light shine on it instead. Robert called that evening. His voice was tight, angrier than I'd heard in years. "You embarrassed us," he snapped. Camille's parents were humiliated. "This isn't how family treats each other." I didn't interrupt. I waited. He went on about the porch, the boxes, the notice, about how it made them look. When he finally stopped, I said only one thing. Family doesn't lie about ownership. There was a pause. I could hear him breathing, hear the silence on his end stretching long and uncertain. Then the call dropped. I didn't call back. That night, Camille's posts about the cabin began to disappear. The photo tour, the captions that read, "Our mountain escape, our forever place," all quietly vanished. The comments were gone too. By morning, the letter from my attorney had arrived. Robert texted later, "We didn't mean for this to get so complicated." I didn't respond. That afternoon, I put on my jacket and walked the trail behind the house. My husband had carved the path years ago, clearing it bit by bit with a handsaw and his own 2 hands. It curved through the trees, past the ridge that overlooked the lake. No one had walked it in a while. Branches had begun to lean over the edges, and pine needles blanketed the ground. My boots crunched against gravel, where we'd once spread it thick. I walked slowly, breathing in the cold. The wind moved gently through the trees, carrying no voices, no laughter, just the soft hush of something being left alone. At the halfway point where the bench used to be, I stopped. There was nothing grand about the moment. No dramatic turn, just the quiet, and the understanding that I didn't need them to say sorry. I didn't need to be understood. I needed them gone, and now they were. The house was quiet again. No voices, no music, No clatter of shoes across the floor. Just the hum of the refrigerator. The occasional creak of the wood adjusting to the morning sun. I opened the windows one by one. The air outside was crisp, touched with pine and cold earth. It swept through the rooms like a breath the house had been holding in. I re-hung the photo of the lake above the fireplace, the one we'd taken the first year we bought the place. The corners had curled slightly, but it still held. In the kitchen, I unpacked my kettle. The old copper one with the blackened bottom. I set it on the stove where it belonged and filled it without needing to think. The smell of water heating was oddly grounding. Upstairs, I removed the last of Camille's things. The perfume bottles. The bathrobe draped behind the door. I folded their towels and placed them in a bag by the back closet. Then I laid out my own familiar, worn clean. The master bedroom was mine again. The light in the corner hit the chair just the same. I placed one photo on the mantel, just one. My husband, holding a fish too small to keep grinning like he'd won something anyway. There was no need for more than that. I took my coffee to the porch steps and sat. The mug was chipped at the rim, but I didn't mind. The trees moved gently with the wind. The sky was pale and open. A bird cut across it and disappeared behind the ridge. No one called out. No one asked me what I was doing or how long I planned to stay. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to.